So yes, big news today. Rishi Sunak is reportedly looking to ban people arriving in the UK via small boats from appealing deportation. The Times newspaper reports the Home Office has drawn up a few options to achieve the Prime Minister's goal, either withdrawing the right to appeal automatic exclusion or only allowing appeals to be heard once deportation has already occurred. Another way of fast-tracking these proposals could be by leaving the ECHR, that's the European Court of Human Rights. And while this has been backed by a number of MPs, others fear this move would violate international law. So, should it be made easier for the UK to deport migrants who cross the Channel illegally? To break this down further, I am joined by former Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining us, and Emeritus Professor of Theology John Milbank. Thank you very much, John. Indeed. So, Ben, what do you think? Do you think that Rishi Sunak stands a hope in hell of doing what he says he's going to do, essentially barring Channel migrants from appealing deportation?
So I think what he's suggesting is that they will be barred from the right to go through the asylum process and barred also from appealing that restriction. And I just simply can't see how that could work, because under the European Convention of Human Rights, you're obliged to three fundamental things: the right to liberty, the right to family, and the right to a fair trial. So unless he's prepared to deviate somehow from the European Convention of Human Rights, he's going to find that the European Court of Human Rights is going to come in and overrule any judicial process in the United Kingdom. So I think this is another one of the, another one in a long line of British government initiatives trying to control this illegal crossing of the Channel through a deportation program. We've had a number of runs at this. The Nationality and Borders Bill, which is now an act, that was meant to solve it. It didn't do it. The Rwandan scheme was meant to do it. It didn't do it. And this is yet another tilt using the legal system and deportations as a mechanism of exercising border control. And like all the others before it, in my view, it's going to fail.
But Ben, so what's he supposed to do? Because we've seen the statistics. Only 21 migrants were deported in the 18 months after Brexit was implemented. That seems a crazily low number, considering the number of illegal crossings that take place every year. What's the answer? Are we not capable of changing our law?
Well, you see, I think the fundamental problem here is that we see border control through a deportation policy. Deportation is actually what you need when border control has failed. And I think what we've got to recognise is that we need a physical, robust response at the point that these people enter our territorial waters. At the moment, Border Force does not act like a border force. It is literally acting as a taxi service to ferry these people from French waters into safe harbour in the United Kingdom. And that's not what border control is. And border control can never be delivered through deportation, because deportation, let's just understand one thing really clearly, and that is that human rights are applied on an individual by individual basis. You can't reach blanket judgments on human rights. So every individual coming across the Channel has the right under human rights law, and I can't see how any government in the United Kingdom can deviate from it, has the right to be heard, has the right to appeal it, and eventually go to the European Court of Human Rights. So if they think they can deal with an influx of 46,000 people a year through a deportation program and use that as a deterrent to prevent would-be illegal crossings of the Channel, they're sadly mistaken. It's never going to work. The only way to do it is to use the existing laws that are already in place under the UN Convention of Laws at the Sea to actually take control of our borders.
John, would you agree with Ben there? Is it certainly, is what Rishi Sunak is proposing not going to happen because of international law?
Yes, I think he's completely right. It's totally unrealistic. And I think he's right also to say that really we need to control our borders, that once people are here, they disappear into the undergrowth, that they always have a right of judicial appeal. It's impossible to control that. But it's also very, very difficult to patrol our borders. And I think realistically, we need to cooperate much more with France to do that. I think there are 3 stages to this. We need to make it easier for people to stay in their countries through international aid. I think we need to police European borders better. And then I think we need to deal with the French crossing. But not only do I think we'd be in violation of the European Court of Human Rights, I think we'd be going against international law, and that it's against natural justice to deport people first and then allow them to appeal, because in effect you've decided the issue already, quite apart from the fact that, you know, who's going to accept them? Probably only the country they're fleeing from in the first place.
John, sorry to interrupt you there, John. Sorry, John, but many British people are fed up of seeing the reality of people crossing the Channel and then the prospect of them being deported practically slim to none. As I said, there are so few. It's in the double digits of people who have actually been deported. What's the answer?
I completely sympathise with the problem, but I think that the answers are extremely difficult. And what you must not do is make it impossible to take refugees at all, against our very proud history. Almost by definition, a refugee has probably flouted the law somewhere along the line. So what we need to do is try, if people are already here, either they're genuine refugees, or if they're merely economic migrants, then we either have to say, well, we need these people anyway and give them citizenship and regularize this, or indeed send them back, which will not be cruel if they're actually simply economic migrants. But I'm not pretending all this is easy. It's not.
Well, Ben, as I said, people are fed up of what they see to be, well, quite activist lawyers, perhaps. Is the answer to remove ourselves from the European Court of Human Rights, as you said in your first remarks? That is what is stopping things like the Rwanda flights from going ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was British courts initially that stopped the Rwanda, people boarding the Rwanda flight, and then I think there was only one person left on it, and that one individual was then had the protective blanket, if you like, of the European Court of Human Rights around them. But I mean, the issue, I think that a couple of things, really. The first thing is that you cannot enforce your borders through a deportation policy. We've got to get tougher in the Channel. And if we're going to do a deal with the French, that deal has to include British boats patrolling French waters and the right to pick up people in French waters and deposit them back in French ports. Short of that, there's no point paying a penny over to France. Then the second thing to take on board, and this is a sad reality about the European Convention of Human Rights, which our politicians just completely mask, and that is we can't leave it. We simply can't leave the European Convention of Human Rights because we are signed up to it by international treaty. We're committed to it under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement that Boris Johnson signed with the EU as part of our trade deal after Brexit. And we're also committed to it through the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which is an international peace treaty between ourselves and Ireland, which we will not deviate from. I mean, there would be absolute hue and cry. We've already got enough problems in Northern Ireland with the wretched protocol. And I just can't see any route out for the United Kingdom, a founding member, by the way, of the European Convention of Human Rights. I can't see any way out of it. What we've got to do is start exercising border control. That's a physical exercise at the point of entry into British territorial waters.
Well, hang on, John. Thanks, Ben. John, people will be watching this and thinking, why on earth can't the UK government do things, essentially, to ameliorate this problem? We have given tens of millions of pounds, of euros, to the French to help patrol the seas. That doesn't seem to be having an impact. As we've seen since 2019, the numbers have just skyrocketed of people attempting and succeeding to make the crossing. Rishi Sunak is saying he wants to ban deportation appeals. Ben and yourself have said that's not possible. Well, what is possible? It seems if the Prime Minister is saying that he wants to do this, but then he cannot do it. Well, how can he then do it, if you get what I mean? He needs to achieve this. He needs to achieve his aim somehow.
Yes, I think he shouldn't be making unrealistic promises. And the fact of the matter, and I'm sure that Ben agrees with this problem is only going to get worse. The world is in total chaos. For one thing, we've got a lot of people, including Christians, fleeing religious persecution. And therefore, there's a sense in which, one country, and we're very vulnerable as an island surrounded by seas, can't deal with this on its own. It requires cooperation with neighbours. And unfortunately, Brexit has actually made that cooperation rather more difficult. It has produced a more unfriendly climate, if you like. But I think that we need to talk with France about having a very humane policy of housing refugees, talking to them, near the French border, trying to deal with it through Franco-British cooperation there. And that's probably the most powerful way to stop them getting on the boats in the first place.
Thank you very much indeed for giving us your thoughts this afternoon. That was, of course, Brexit Party MEP Ben Habib, friend of the show, of course, and Emeritus Professor of Theology John Milbank.